Hello, podcast world, fellow horticulturists, lovers of plants, gardeners, family, and friends. Welcome to Shrubby Buddies, the podcast, friends with woodies for garden goodies. I'm host Matt Guthrie.
And I'm host Tim Fleischer. Coming at you from Central Ohio, Zone 6B. We're just a couple of public horticulturists and certified arborists with experience in education, landscape design, gardening, retail, and wholesale.
So grab a drink, polish your pruners, dust off that kneeling pad, and let's get down to business. Hey, podcast world, and welcome to episode 3 of Shrubby Buddies, friends with woodies for garden goodies. I'm Matt, joined with Timmy Buzzard Breath Fleischer over here. So Tim, week 3, it's been a busy week, I know, for both of us, but so what's been going on since our last recording? What's been going on for you? Anything cool at the house, at work, whatever?
Well, let me just start with, today you got a cruddy buddy, because I got a little tickle in my throat, a little cold going on.
Yeah,
so
you do.
Hopefully I don't do too much coughing into this mic, but
I haven't heard you cough yet.
my voice, I just like my voice when I'm feeling a little cruddy, though.
Yeah, a little
nice.
raspy.
You like that?
Yeah, a little sexy raspy voice.
Yeah,
I like
so
that.
yeah, it's been busy. I got my vegetable garden finished up today, so
Nice.
got all the tomatoes, peppers, got some watermelon planted and some cucumbers, and thinned out some of the beets, and I think in the next couple of days I'll have my first radish, which
Oh, yeah? What are you going to do with that? You going to eat it raw, or are you going to do something special?
eating it raw, just straight
Raw
from my
dog?
hand. Yeah, and I'm going to eat the little root tip on it too.
Yeah, I like when you do that thing where you put it in your mouth that looks like a mouse tail hanging out of your
Yeah.
mouth. I've always liked that.
I'm going to do a lot of that because I'm going to have a lot of radishes, so
Nice. Bring some in for me.
we'll do.
So-
Underrated vegetable. And let's see, our red horse chestnut is in full bloom right now. All its glory. That tree we planted about 8 years ago for our firstborn, and this is about the only time of year it looks good. Other than that, it's all downhill from here. So,
Yeah, but it looks
so good right now.
Yeah.
So we're just enjoying that red horse chestnut, Aesculus ex carnea, if you will. And and I've been missing you, bub, because you've been up in the motherland. I haven't seen you all week, northern Michigan, huh?
Yeah, the motherland. Went up to my brother's cabin for a few days. Did a little work on the cabin, did a little rock hounding, did a little hiking through the nature preserves, looking at spring ephemerals. They're a couple weeks behind us up there. Was hoping to find mushrooms, but they're not quite ready yet.
You did find a variegated trillium, though. That was cool.
Well, yes, but it's got like a bacterial infection, apparently. I reached out to...
It's a sick trillium.
Yeah, it's a sick trillium. Yeah, I reached out to a mutual friend of ours who's a botanist for the state of Ohio, and he filled me in on what was going on with that. So, no bueno, looks cool nonetheless. Yeah, did a little oven floor install.
Gotta love a good oven floor. You're never going to get that thing finished.
Oven floor, did a little work on the cabin, rode the four-wheeler some. The turkeys up there, the wild turkeys are going crazy, just gobbling their heads off. So, as far as gardens here, the ones at my house, like we left on Tuesday, got back late Saturday, and just in that amount of time that I was gone, it was kind of a little rainy here at my house. I know the rain's been kind of patchy here and there. If you happen to be under one, it's good. So rainy and warm, and everything just exploded while I was gone. I came back and like everything had doubled in size in 4 days. So
It's quite lush out there.
yeah, so excited about that. Other than that, nothing really. Perennial borders are looking good. They're really starting to come on strong, as you saw when you walked in today. But
It's a nice perennial border. You have any shrubs in that?
I do have some shrubs in that, and that brings us to today's episode. Today's episode is Grow a Spine, using shrubs as a backbone in your perennial border. So yeah, just kind of as it sounds, we're going to talk about some deciduous and evergreen shrubs that you can use to kind of add structure. Maybe it will act as a backdrop for for the perennial border. Yeah, I don't know what do you want to add to that?
Yeah, it's the namesake. We're the shrubby / cruddy buddies today, so we're gonna delve into some shrubs.
Yeah,
So
I like it.
how about I start her off
I would love for you to
with
start it off.
one of my favorites that gets mixed into the perennial border, and that's winterberry holly,
Mm-hmm.
Ilex verticillata. And when you think of hollies around the holidays, you think of the dark green leaves and the red berries and evergreen. This is actually a holly that loses its leaves, and it is native here to our area. And in my opinion, well, it's not my opinion. From what I've seen, it is the best performing holly in our area by far. And what's kind of cool about it is that you get the berries after the leaves fall, so the berries just shine. They're not competing with that dark green glossy foliage. So love adding a little winterberry into the border. It's slower growing. It can become a larger plant, but it doesn't happen overnight. And I think that's what we're trying to focus on today is things you can plug into a border that's maybe a little smaller, that's not just going to double in size overnight and take over your garden. So the winterberry holly is a perfect addition for that. And it can take some shade. Actually, I've seen it take full shade just fine.
Yeah.
And I've also seen it take full sun, dry conditions just fine.
Horrible condition. I've seen it in some really bad conditions where it gets a lot of heat off of buildings. You know, there's that one patch of it down where, you know, in Dublin there where we work, and they use it along that sidewalk, and you know that thing's getting 80 billion pounds of salt dumped on it every year with the way they salt down there.
Lots of salt. And that playground too in Dublin, where it's getting the soil around it's getting stomped on. It's right along the drive, and it's flourishing.
Banging, dude. It's a good one.
It is, and it does a nice job in the garden, and it's just going to kind of sit in your garden and be green throughout the season, and you're not really going to notice it. But once the perennials start to go to bed, it's just going to put on this incredible berry display. And red is the real common one that people like to go after, but it also comes in different shades of orange and yellow and gold.
Yep.
So just one last thing about hollies in general is that you're going to need one male plant for your female plants, because if the male will pollinate the female plants, and that's the only way you'll get berries.
So don't spend a lot of time on that right now, but could you give the listeners kind of a ratio? I know I've heard, several different ones, but what's your practice? Like one male for how many females?
I would say 7 to 9.
Okay.
But here's the thing. As long as the male, the mister, is nearby the ladies, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
So if you've got 30 of them, as long as they're all kind of close together, you're going to be just fine, from what I've seen. Mm-hmm. And just commenting on that, this plant, you can have one, you can make it a specimen plant, but I think it's way better as in a grouping.
Yep, for sure.
Plant a bunch of them together so those berries can really do their magic.
That mister really gets around in the garden.
Yeah, but the thing is, he gets around, but you just hide him. He doesn't get berries, so you just put him behind something. Put him behind your air conditioning unit or something, or hide him behind a tree trunk.
Yeah, I hear you.
So yeah, that mister, he doesn't do much other than, well, he does a lot, but he is fairly ugly. So
yeah. Cool. Well, we'll move on to the next one. Any particular order you want me to go in with this?
Just what do you like?
Well, because I'm looking down through a list here, and I feel like there's some that you would be better suited to talk about than myself. So I'm going to go with Pinnacle hydrangea paniculata, specifically 2 cultivars we're going to talk about right now. Bobo being one, and Little Quickfire being the other. Both of them are spectacular little shrubs. They're going to be in that 3 foot by 3 foot, maybe 4 foot by 4 foot on the larger side. But yeah, so just a real nice tight Pinnacle hydrangea. They do well in the full sun. They could take a little bit of afternoon shade. I wouldn't plant them in the full on shade. But what's great about them is they put on loads of white flowers. Summertime, and then those flowers will, as the season progresses, will fade from white to kind of this I don't know, like this toned down pinky kind of reddy color on the flower. I don't know what color you would call that exactly, but yeah, spectacular little shrubs. We sell a ton of them at the greenhouse. Like, it seems like every other customer that comes in there looking for a shrub ends up walking out with a bobo hydrangea, whether it be to use in their perennial border as a foundation shrub, or even, we sell them to put in pots. But
yeah, and you and I plant a lot of these too.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I've got some great little shrubs. So yeah, panicle hydrangea, bobo, little quick fire.
Little quick fire has like a looser flower habit. It's more open than the tight flowers of the bobo. And it also blooms a lot earlier too. So it's one of the earlier blooming hydrangeas, the little quick fire, which is one of the good things about that.
Yeah. Perfect. So hydrangea paniculata, panicled hydrangea, look for some of the smaller cultivars, bobo and quick fire, little quick fire, the two that we are going to recommend today.
Yeah, and we could go on a tangent about hydrangeas. There's a lot of great ones, but today we're going to stick with some of the more dwarfy panicled ones.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
Anything else on that list?
No, I don't think so. I mean,
that's getting you excited today?
Getting me excited? I mean, all of it gets me excited. I could talk about 9-bark being another one that you can use.
Yeah, let's talk about 9-bark.
Yeah, so 9-bark, geez,
it's better than 8-bark, but not quite as good as 10-bark.
Yeah, so we'll just stick with the 9-bark.
Does the trick.
Yeah, so 9-bark, physocarpus, lots of different cultivars, and I don't want to get down that rabbit hole of talking about a lot of different cultivars with it, but just know that there are a million different cultivars, it seems like, for it, whether you want dark purple leaves, whether you want kind of like orangey copper colored leaves, greeny chartreuse colored leaf. They similar to like Cucuris, think of like Cucura colors.
And he's not talking about fall color either. He's talking about the foliage from leaf out all the way
to fall, all the way through to fall, and it does get a nice flower on it. What's nice about them too is you can get them from some that stay really small, tight, compact shrubs to some that get a little bit larger in size, but you can really shape on them too. You can prune them hard if you want to. If you feel like they're getting a little out of control, you can prune the 9-barks pretty hard. They respond really well to pruning. Just do that like in the spring. You can do it through the season if you feel like it's still getting out of control, and it really responds well to the pruning. So
and we're not going to do too much on the cultivars, but I really like Panther lately. It's Panther. It's almost black. I mean, it's so dark purple that in the right conditions, it's almost black, and it's unlike anything else. And it also makes a really nice substitute for barberry, which is just kind of a devil plant.
Yeah.
So, and we'll get into that. I have a lot of topics on mind about, bashing on barberry, but it's a great alternative to barberry because it comes in all those same colors, but it's just better in in every single way. So
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so 9-bark, that would be one on the list. What do you got? I see a couple more on this list here that we can talk about. Deciduous shrubs.
Well, I want to shift. I want to get to an evergreen that I'm dying to get to.
Okay. If you want to talk about an evergreen,
you mind if we skip to an evergreen and then skip back to deciduous?
I don't care. Yeah.
So I'm just dying to talk about Cephalotaxis.
Talk about it, because I know how you are with that. The Cephalotaxis, Japanese plum yew. Mm-hmm. Get after it.
Yeah. So there's two things that are certain for a horticulturist, right? Death and taxus. Well, this is Cephalotaxis. This is some next level shit right here, and everybody's seen a taxus or a yew, if you're not familiar with the name, but you've definitely seen it. It's a very, old fashioned evergreen, and I have no problem with it. I use them, but this Cephalotaxis has a very similar look. If you look closely, it's much more refined, in my opinion, how it looks, but it does really, really well in dense shade, and it's deer proof, whereas you can't say the same thing for Taxus. And it comes in a variety of different forms, and I think that, it's as far as breeding goes, there's a lot more breeding yet to be done, whereas the taxus, is such an old plant. But there's a fastigiate one.
Yeah.
There's the prostrata, which is kind of like sprawling all over the ground, almost like a ground cover evergreen. There's the one that I have in my garden that you helped me acquire, which was hedgehog, and it's more of a low growing one with more of a vase-shaped habit, and it's very vigorous, and you got to get over and see that thing. It's right behind my grill, so it gets a lot of heat off of it, right by a brick wall, full shade, and it is just, it grows 6 inches a year. I'm almost about to start pruning it, but a really great evergreen shrub to mix in there, and it's probably something that I need to tone down on. I'm using it constantly.
Yeah,
in the garden, it's like my go-to evergreen to mix into the border right now.
Yeah. So. Yeah, a lot of different ones. I like that it will do well in the full shade, dry shade. It's a very versatile plant, that's for sure. It looks very, very similar to just your. Looks similar to the just
driving by. The needles maybe are a little bit longer and a little bit. I guess it depends on the cultivar of the taxus, but I just think it has a nicer, darker green to it.
Yeah.
Yes. And the new growth comes out really bright and then just kind of mellows out to that dark green. And it's funny, they do suffer from a little bit of winter desiccation. So in full sun, you'll definitely see a little bit of, browning perhaps, but then they green right back up.
Or winter bronzing, as you might call it, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
We can call it that.
Okay.
Sure.
So there's Tim's 8-hour ramble on Cephalotaxis. That's how much he likes it.
Yeah, my bad. Love that plant.
It's all good.
I remember when I discovered that plant back when I just started studying horticulture. I first saw it at the Dawes Arboretum, and it was in a high deer pressure area, and it was the prostrata one, and it was just sprawling all over the ground. I thought that thing is cool.
Yep.
And I just fell in love with it right there and then.
Yeah.
So
it's a great one.
Little plug for the Dawes Arboretum.
Yeah.
Newark, Ohio.
Newark.
Jacksontown, somewhere in that area. Licking County.
All right, so back to two more quick deciduous shrubs.
Okay.
We won't spend a ton of time on this. One being red twig dogwood. Won't get into all of the cultivars of it. I know you've all seen it at the garden center. You can get them. The most common is the variegated red twig dogwood. You can get them not variegated. You can get them even in yellow and like an orangey, sunbursty kind of colored stem. But yeah, red twig dogwood does well in full sun to part shade, likes water. So you might want to use it in an area where it's going to get a little bit of extra water. But yeah, red twig dogwood. It's a great plant. I don't know if you want to add anything to it.
Yeah, it'll do fine in dry conditions once established, but it will really thrive in an area like a little swale that you might have or a low-lying area.
Yeah.
Again, like the winterberry, gotta plant this one in mass. Just plant a bunch of these together because those red or orange or yellow stems just emerging from the snow in the wintertime, if you're in an area that gets snow, it's pretty striking.
It is. Yeah. What I like about it too is you can even selectively take some of those stems off and use them in like winter winter pot or something.
And that's why having them in mass is good because you can, you'll have more stock to cut from. And I think the variegated cultivar you mentioned is Ivory Halo.
Yeah, that's a real popular one.
My favorite is Midwinter Fire. It literally looks like flames. It's got like all the warm colors just kind of weaving through the stems. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So the red twig dogwood and cultivars.
It's got some blooms. It's not like a showy dogwood tree. It's got some kind of flat topped blooms that come and go, but no one's planting it for the blooms.
Yeah.
Not what you're planting it for.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah.
We got one more deciduous shrub. You want to hit on that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So again, like hydrangeas, we could do a lot of viburnums, but we're trying to keep it, one per genus here. So Brandywine viburnum nudum, the cultivar Brandywine, although there are multiple cultivars available of viburnum nudum. But what I like about this one compared to some of the other viburnums is it's got a real nice open habit to it. So you can kind of you can kind of stick it in the middle of your garden, and the perennials will find a way to kind of tickle through it. And
Tickles.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not going to make a big footprint, as in not allowing perennials to go around it. So they'll tickle through it. And it, like the last plant, it has some nice flowers. They're okay. I'm not growing it for the flowers. They're big. They come and go quickly. But the one big season for it is fall. But then there's 2 fireworks in the fall. First,
Yeah.
it's the fall color and the berries, and they kind of both come at the same time.
Yep.
And the fall color is, so this viburnum has glossy leaves, so it's like a glossy maroon, real rich red color. And then the berries are kind of like a metallic blue and purple and pink. They're multicolored, so you're not just getting one color.
You kind of get 2 or 3 colors on them.
Yeah, and the way they just kind of hang up on the tip of the branches, it's gorgeous against that red fall color. This is one you definitely want to get your Google machine out and take a look at this. But this you can use in mass, but I use it as a specimen, just kind of in pretty full shade in my backyard. It's shaded by my house, and on the other side, the neighbor's large oak tree, and it hardly gets any sun, and it performs really well. It's actually about time to prune it too after this season.
But with that being said, I've also seen it planted in some full sun.
Oh yeah, it loves
tough conditions, and it thrives.
Yeah, I planted a bunch at Bristol in full sun, and they're banging.
Yeah, so I agree, and this would be another good alternative to like a burning bush. I know we talked about an alternative to barberry earlier with the 9-bark. This particular viburnum, and you know, so many of the other viburnums, I can't recommend enough for alternatives to the burning bush that everyone wants to plant around their house.
Yeah, we're probably going to do several episodes about this, not that, and plants that we think are absolute rubbish. But it's just, since you mentioned it, put planting burning bush, and this is a really good substitution for that, and it has, so many more positive attributes than burning bush does.
Yeah. Cool. So that kind of wraps up what we have highlighted for deciduous.
Yeah, lose their leaves, lose their foliage.
Yep, things that lose their foliage. So we're going to kick it into gear here. We got just a few evergreens we're going to kind of try and get through quick here. So I'll start off. If you want me to, I can hit a couple of them, and then I can let you finish up with one, if that works.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Yeah. So the first one I'm going to talk about is microbiota. What's the common name for that? Like Siberian... What is that? What is the common name for microbiota? Anyways,
Matt, I don't know common names.
I don't either. Anyways, a good, let's say, juniper-ish kind of.
Very juniper-esque.
Yeah, very, very like ground cover juniper-esque type plant, but it isn't prickly, which I love. Softer foliage, does well in shade, full sun. Yeah, microbiota, great plant. Once established, it's got some vigor to it, but you can easily keep it kind of in check. But what I like about it, and the way that I use them, as well as some of the other lower growing evergreens, one that we're going to talk about here in a minute, I like them in the middle of the perennial border, where they can kind of get over dominated by the perennials through the season. So
they kind of get lost in there.
They get lost in there.
This thing really does hug the ground.
It hugs the ground. You get perennials kind of in and around it that really kind of overpower it, kind of dominate it, kind of hide it through the growing season, spring, summer, and into fall. But what I like about the evergreens, especially that one, is when all of that other stuff is kind of done for the season. It is either been cut back, or it's lost some foliage, and or it's kind of melted into the ground. Some of your perennials, you're left with this really nice green shrub through the wintertime, when nothing else is really doing anything. And what I love about the microbiota is the almost purple color bronzing that it gets. It goes from a green to kind of this coppery purple colored foliage, which is just beautiful. And then it's very quick in the spring to go from that winter bronzing right into the green.
Yeah, Matt was throwing my cephalotaxis a bone there when he talked about a winter bronzy color, because it really isn't that great. But the microbiota, that winter bronzing into the almost purple that he talks about, it is really cool. You just got to see it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
it's
Siberian.
Beautiful.
I just Googled it. Siberian cypress is the common name for it. So I knew it was Siberian something. But
Microbiota decuspidata, something along those lines.
Something along those lines. Yeah. Decussita, something like that. Yeah. But yeah, you can find it at garden centers. There's several different cultivars that are getting sold out there. But yeah, microbiota is a good one. I use it pretty frequently. I love the just kind of feathery looking foliage of it. Very soft too. So
yeah, I noticed you used it in your front beds, kind of just here and there. And I've used it as a river.
Yeah.
Just like a whole river,
rivers,
cutting
roads,
right through the perennial border.
Rivers and roads.
Rivers. Yeah. But yeah, that's how I've used it, and I've loved it. And I know one of the nicest plantings I know of, it's at Inniswood Metro Gardens here in Columbus, right as you pull in to when you start to get into the parking lot area, it's right there in the median strip, and there's a whole lot of it kind of
tough nails plant.
Really tough spot right there, and it's doing really well.
Yeah, I like using it in my borders for what it's worth. So I isn't worth much, but
Matt likes a lot of things starting with micro, but we're not going to get into that today.
Yeah, I mean, what can I say?
What can you say?
I don't know.
What's next on the list?
Next on the list,
Micro man.
Gray owl juniper. We've been using this now for several years. There's some different. This is just one cultivar we're going to talk about because we love it so much. It's a native juniper. I've drawn a blank on. It's Juniperus virginiana gray owl, and it's just this pretty blue foliaged juniper. It's not real prickly like some of the junipers you might be thinking of. Get some size to it with time.
Easily
pruned, very hardy.
Sends out nice sprays, so it kind of has a neat, irregular shape to it.
Yes, and that's kind of what I like about it, is that you can get some stuff planted up relatively close to it, and those sprays are going to kind of weave their way around some of the perennials, flowers and things like that, which adds a really cool texture and kind of dynamic to the perennial border. But gray owl juniper, I don't know what.
Well, this one you're going to want
over here coughing.
I am cruddy. You're going to want this one in as much sun as you can get to it.
Yeah.
And just like a juniper, though, it's so tough in dry, poor soils. So, and that's what a lot of us have, just dry, poor soils, and that's where junipers tend to grow.
Yeah, but it's going to be one that you may want to give just a little bit more room to. I've noticed that it can be kind of vigorous if it likes where it's at. Easily pruned, so you can kind of keep it in check. But,
yeah, I've got it in some areas where after I planted it, I was like, it's probably going to be a little too big for that spot. So we're going to have to revisit that.
Yeah.
And give it a prune, but
that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Be all right.
So, all right. Gray owl juniper. Last but not least, why don't you wrap this one up? I know that we'll spend just a minute or so talking about this last one.
Yeah, so this last one, I'm breaking our rule, and I'm gonna throw something else at you from the holly genus Ilex, but this one's evergreen, and this is Ilex glabra, and this isn't like the holly with the bright red berries. This isn't really grown for the berries. The berries are black and not really that noticeable. But what this Ilex glabra is, for a third time now, a really good replacement for boxwood. And if you see it from a distance and you didn't know any the better, you would just think it's a boxwood. You might even think it's a boxwood if you saw it up close.
Absolutely.
But it has different, more acuminate leaves, I said a word, leaves that come to a more of a point, and they've got notches in the sides, so they do look a little bit different, but they're also very small and slender leaves like a boxwood, but they don't come with all the baggage. So there's nothing wrong with boxwoods as far as invasiveness or anything like that, but boxwoods now they're struggling. I feel like when we get questions about struggling plants, 9 times out of 10, it's the boxwoods.
Yeah.
What is wrong with my boxwoods? And there's boxwood, there's blights, there's leaf miner, and then there's a score of things that on top of that are affecting boxwoods.
Yeah.
And this is a really nice substitution for that, because it, like a boxwood, it does very well in the shade. It also does very well in the sun if given enough water at establishment. And it can be pruned like a boxwood, although I don't always recommend that. But, slower growing, really deep, dark green foliage, evergreen, really just a really pretty foundation plant that you can use as a backdrop or mix perennials in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love it. We were just talking about that at the greenhouse the other day. What's a good alternative for boxwood? And this is the one that I can't recommend enough. And
yeah, there's a couple, but this is number one by a long shot.
Yeah, so Ilex glabra, the glabra, whatever you want to call it. Inkberry holly is the common name for the common folk out there. Inkberry holly. And it's neat because even some of the cultivar names are just... So one, I'm looking at it right here on Google. One is called Jim Box.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is called Strong Box.
Yes.
There's another popular one called Shamrock that's got a very, boxwoody look to it. They all really do. So yeah, it's one that I can't recommend enough. It doesn't get the leaf miter, which is a plus in my book, and it doesn't get the blight, which is becoming a big problem.
Yeah, very, very little problem, very few problems for this, and it's native. Yeah.
So cool.
Just lots of water at establishment. I've learned that the hard way and had a few die on me from not watering them enough at the onset. But once established, not going to be a problem.
Yeah. Sweet. So did we want to run through like an honorable mention thing real quick?
Yeah. It's not that these plants are less important. It's just we weren't able to get to them in our time allotment today. And so one being Fothergilla, which we talked about at length in our first episode,
yes.
Adigilla, and just a fantastic slow growing shrub with elite fall color.
Yep.
And just a full year long plant. It just, the blooms and the foliage and the fall color, and then the structure of the shrub once it loses its leaves, it's elite. It really is.
Yeah.
You're laughing, but
no, I'm laughing because it just became a non-honorable mention, but it's just worked its way right into the regular list of deciduous shrubs, which is fine.
It probably would have been one of our focal points had we not already talked about it so much in a previous episode.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
And guess what, folks? We'll talk about it more. We're going to talk about it more. It fits into almost every category here.
Absolutely.
Any others?
Calycanthus was one that we could kind of hit on a little bit. Although with Calycanthus, some of them tend to get large if left to do their thing without any pruning, without any intervention. But Calycanthus being one, you can Google it. Clethra being one, and then another honorable mention we had was buttonbush. So I think with buttonbush, though, one thing I will add with buttonbush would be making sure that it gets a little bit more water, maybe in a place that gets a little bit more water.
Yeah, it is native, and it's actually hard to find out in our native environment because it only really appears in swamps.
Or along rivers. Yeah,
I've seen it. A really nice stand of it over by where I live, and it's in like a true swamp, and it's pretty cool to see native like that, but a pollinator magnet. So if you're looking for especially butterflies,
Yeah.
I love this thing.
Oh yeah, every time I see them when they're flowering, they are just like loaded with the pollinators. So if you're all about the pollinators, this is the one for you.
So buttonbush, plethora, calycanthus, and fothergilla were the ones that we weren't able to talk about in depth today, but take a look at those. We will add the names of all these to the Instagram this week, so you can
Shrubby Buddies podcast on Instagram. Give us a follow, give us a like. Make sure to follow that page because we supplement this information that we're giving you on the Instagram. So you can kind of see what it is that we're talking about. And you can take that information with you to the nursery if you're interested in purchasing any of this stuff.
Yeah, and they're good photos too. Good photos.
Yeah, we do our best. We're not photographers, but we do our best to take good photos. We have a lot of them.
We're photographers.
Yeah.
They're good photos.
Absolutely. So, good deal.
Yeah.
I think that kind of wraps up episode 3, unless you have anything you want to add.
This cruddy buddy has nothing more to add.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good, but I love a nice list of shrubs. It really gets me going.
I do. And we're the Shrubby Buddies.
Yes, we are.
So what's more fitting than a list of shrubs? So until next time, same place, same time, next week, I hope that you all have a wonderful week, and we will see you. You'll hear us next week.
Yeah, and happy Mother's Day, because last week we did our Mother's Day special, and that's coming up this weekend. So happy Mother's Day to all the mothers near and far. We love you.
Love you harder.
No, you don't.
Okay. All right, people. Peace, love, and trees. We out.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.